What's up, everybody? My name is Brian Tripp. I want to share my experience racing in the 2022 Ironman Chattanooga, the full Ironman. It was definitely an interesting experience. It was my first Ironman. This video is going to be geared towards those who have never done an Ironman or maybe have never done one in Chattanooga before. There are lots of videos out there that I watched getting ready for the Chattanooga race. If you want like a detailed, in-depth, what's the swim course like, the bike and the run. This really isn't that video, even though I am going to go over those courses just a little bit. I'm just going to share with you my experience. First thing I'm going to say is I was way overtrained to just finish the race, because that was my goal going into it. Is I just want to finish. I just want to beat the cutoff time of 16 and a half hours. And I ended up racing it, ended up running at 13:03, and not only did I run it in 13:03, when I finished, I had a lot left in the tank. I did not do the run as hard as I should have or could have. I was saving. And so I had a negative split from the first half to the second half of the run. And, looking back on it now, it's easy to see where I kind of went wrong. And that's main reason why I want to make this video is, one, I want to document what it is that I did. But two, if people are watching this and they're interested in learning, maybe what not to do, is I just left so much in the tank. And I was really worried about the run. I'd never run a full marathon before ever in my life. I'd hiked one. I've hiked 26 plus miles in a day numerous times, but I'd never run a full marathon. And we'll get to the run later, but I feel like I just left a lot in the tank, and I could have done a little bit better than the 13:03, perhaps shave a half hour, even a full hour off of it. But let's get into the actual course. The biggest thing I was worried about going into the Ironman was the swim. I didn't really start swimming until about 3 months before the Ironman. And I'm not scared of the water. I could probably tread water for hours if I needed to or had to. So I wasn't scared from that standpoint. I'd just never done 4,000, meters before. And the swim I felt going into it that if I could just get through the swim, the rest of it, I'll be relieved. I felt like I was pretty decent on the bike, and I could do well enough on the bike. And I feel like I could power hike the slash run the marathon and still come in under 16. So I felt pretty good about it. But the only thing I was worried about was the swim. And let me just I'll take you through this. I'll take you through a couple of things I did wrong, and then I'll give you some good news here when I get done talking about the swim. So you jump in, and they don't let you dive in. You have to jump in and then kind of get going. And if you look at this, I watched one YouTube video where a guy was talking about, sight for this island out here. And if you sight for the island, and if you draw like a straight line from the entry point to the island, instead of going around this curve, you actually save some time. So I was a moron, and I ended up swimming like out here in the middle, where the current is a little bit quicker in the middle. So they didn't say that you couldn't go out there, but I guess it was kind of discouraged because the Coast Guard and then all the people in the kayaks are like, go left, and they kept telling me that for about a half an hour, and I kept trying to go left. Anyway, it was a stupid idea. I shouldn't have done it. But at the end of the day, I was trying to just cut off any little bit I could. So it didn't even really make sense to sight for the island, even though some of the videos were telling me to sight for the island, because most people are going to tell you just sight to the next buoy. And so that's really what you should do, is just buoy to buoy, just sight for the buoys. By the time I got towards the end, that last little bridge you go under, because you go under, I think 3 bridges. I think you actually go under 4. Something makes me think you go under 4 bridges. Anyway, when you go under that last bridge, you can actually kind of cut off some of this. And my watch ended up showing about 3,300 yards versus 3,800, which I think is a mile. The thing with the swim is if you look at my results, I did the swim at 1 hour and 9 minutes. Now, listen, if I would have done that swim in a lake or in the ocean without the current, it would have taken me easily an hour 30, probably closer to an hour 40. Like, I'm so bad at swimming. I hated it. I even spent about 5 minutes hanging onto a kayak. So of those 100 of the hour 9, 5 of those minutes were just spent hanging onto a kayak, just to kind of regroup. And then I didn't do good form. I kind of treaded water and did kind of more just trying to get there. So I didn't really do like great form or anything like that, and I still did the thing in an hour and 9 minutes. So I'll say all that to say this. I was one of the worst swimmers there. If you open up my swim, I finished the swim 999th amongst, I think there were 1,064 men, and I was almost dead last. Overall rank on the swim, 1438. And there were only 1,600 people, 1,600 something in the whole race. So I was almost dead last in the swim in the whole race, but I still finished in an hour 9. By the time I got to transition 1, like there were hardly any bikes there. There was like, it seemed like just maybe 100 bikes total in this gigantic transition area. So I say all that to say this: if you're worried about the swim, don't be worried about the swim. You're going to be fine. Even if you like barely train for the swim, and as long as you can keep yourself above water for an hour plus, you're gonna be fine. So I wouldn't even spend the majority of my time working on the swim if you know you're only gonna do Chattanooga and your goal is to only finish the thing. So that was my goal. I just wanted to finish the whole race, and I posted what would have been an incredible swim time if it were in a lake or in an ocean. And you have like 2 hours and 20 minutes to do the swim. So I don't think anyone came in past the cutoff. That's the swim course. Super fast. The river is moving like crazy. And I know it changes from year to year. At least that's what people have told me. And we did get rain the night before and got a little bit of rain that morning. So that probably made it go a little bit faster. But man, holy cow. I remember just bobbing in the water and watching the bank go by. I was just bobbing there, just treading water, and I was moving. So I say it and say, don't worry about the swim. Now the bike. For what Chattanooga does not have when it comes to the swim, they make up for it and then some on the bike and on the run. I've been told that the bike course is one of the hillier courses in the whole circuit, and so is the run course. So let's talk about the bike course. I don't know exactly what the elevation was. Does it say here? Here it is, 4,800 feet. So less than 5,000 feet of climbing over the course of 116 miles. So they do give you what they don't, because the swim is so fast, they add a few extra miles to the bike. So it's normally 112. In Chattanooga, it's 116. So in the beginning here, these first 10 miles, you come out of Chattanooga, a little bumpy. You go over some railroad tracks. It's a little bumpy. It's not nice roads like it is once you get into Georgia. But you go south of the city and you get into Georgia, and you do 2 big loops on this course here. And it's a bunch of rollers. Now, I train on a very hilly course, a course that's almost twice as hilly as this course. So to me, it really wasn't a big deal. I didn't think the bike course was that big of a deal at all, mainly because it's I train on something that is pretty hilly. But there's some rollers. The thing is with the rollers, there's nothing too steep. They don't the uphills don't go up for very long before you come right back down. It's just up and down, up and down. Now, on the back side of the course, the front side of the course, which is this side over here, the front side of the course, it's kind of like rollers, and it's kind of taking you like up the whole time. Now, on the back side of the course is pretty flat, or it's taking you downhill most of the time. I do remember, and I don't know the course like the back of my hand. Obviously, I only did 2 loops. But I do remember there being the steepest section is on this back side, where the steepest uphill. But on the back side of that steepest uphill is an absolute screamer. I got up to, I think, check this out. I didn't even have a tri-bike. I didn't have aero bars. I was just on a standard road bike, and I still got to 39 miles an hour on that screamer of a hill going straight downhill. And then, you do 2 laps, and then once you do that second lap, you take this little 10-mile jolt back into the city. And it's long. I think it took me, here, let's go to my times. Yeah, so 6 hours and 40 minutes is what it took me to do the bike. Now, I did the bike in, when I was 999th overall in the swim, I was 639th overall on the bike, and I was 833. I finished about half. There's 1,600 people total, and I finished about the middle of the pack. So 6 hours and almost 40 minutes there to do the bike, and I got off the bike twice to pee too. So that's at least 4 or 5 minutes each. Lots of aid stations. They're handing you stuff as you go by, super smooth. I felt like I was well hydrated. I was well, had good nutrition pretty much the whole day. And it's because they do such a great job. There's so many aid stations, and I didn't have any issues whatsoever on the bike. So the bike to me was great. The sorest I was post race when I got done with the whole thing was my neck and shoulder area just from sitting up on the bike. But I wasn't really sore in my legs or anything like that. It was just being on the bike for that long a period of time. And to be honest, I held back a little bit because I knew I had that run coming up, and I kind of felt like I had the thing in the bag. Once I got out of the water, I felt super confident, and I'm looking at my times. I'm posting like a 17 mile an hour average, a little bit more than, I think it was 17 and a half miles an hour was my average. And I felt good. And you're sitting here talking about, I'm doing the math, 6.5 plus an hour and a half when you add transitions. I'm at 8 hours. That gives me 8 hours to do the run. And I'm just the whole time on the bike, or especially on the back side of the second lap, I'm just like, as long as I don't have a flat tire, as long as I don't have bike failure, I've got this thing in the bag, because my only goal is just to finish the thing. So that takes us to the run. I get off the bike, and my T2 time, my transition 2 time was about 10 minutes. I really took my time because I knew I had time. So I changed clothes. I actually changed fresh underwear. I put on I jog in basketball shorts. I put on basketball shorts, and I changed my shirt. And I lubed myself up with some Vaseline that they had on hand, and I got I ate something. And I got about a half bottle of water in me. I used the bathroom. I got some sunscreen on. I think I started the run at about 4 o'clock, somewhere around 4 o'clock, and the sun was out. I put a little bit of sunscreen, in the back of my head. I put my running hat on. So I took my time. And then let me go to the run course here. So in the run course, it's really weird how they got this thing set up. This thing looks like a maze when you just look at it. So you're starting down here. You come out see the T. You're coming out of transition, and you come around this way. And you're going all the way up through here. This whole section right here, it says 4 miles. This whole section is uphill for the most part, straight uphill. Not bad, not terrible. And if I had to guess, 1%, maybe 2% grade, probably 1.5, maybe 2%. It's just a slow, steady climb. So listen, I already knew I had the thing in the bag, so I just hiked it. It was my plan going into the run was I was going to hike anything that was uphill, and I was going to jog all the flats and all the downhills. Okay, lightly jog all the downhills and all the flats. That was my plan going into it. So you do this whole course twice. It's 13.5 miles, 13.1 twice. So once you get up here and you turn around and you go back through the park, this is all either downhill or flat. Most of it's flat, but there's a little bit of downhill. And this is just easy running right here. So by the time you get over here to the bridge that takes you across the river, which, by the way, the bridge is uphill, halfway uphill and then halfway down. So I jogged this whole section down, hiked it up the hill, and then I jogged down, and I jogged. And then once you get to Barton, Barton is an SOB. So any of the videos you see on YouTube about the run, that details the run, they all talk about Barton. Barton is there is about a third of a mile, almost a half a mile section where it's just straight uphill. It's just straight uphill, super steep. Think about the steepest incline you've ever run before on pavement, and this is what that's going to be. But it only lasts between a third and a half a mile. So I hiked that, and I hiked it kind of slow actually. And then, obviously you got a screamer coming back downhill because what goes up must come down. So there's a screamer on the backside of Barton. Then you do this little loop, and then you got to do Barton again. So I hiked it up, and then I jogged it down. And then I jogged all this. All this was flat. And then here's the turnaround. And you got to do the whole thing again. So the second lap for me, I had so much energy. I felt so good to start the second lap, and it's getting dark. It's not pitch black yet, but it's probably around 6:30, getting close to 7 o'clock. And it's probably about 6. It's getting dark. It's getting a little chilly, and but I felt great. And I think one of the reasons why I felt so good, number one, I was pacing myself really well, but number two, they have aid stations on the run course set up every mile. Every single mile, there's an aid station. I was grabbing an orange slice and squeezing the orange slice into my mouth pretty much every single time. I got a little sip of water, a little sip of Gatorade, and then so the way they got them set up, the aid stations are so long. They start you with water, then there's Gatorade, then there's a mixture of foods, various fruits and bars and anything, chocolate, anything you can think of. And then there's like like power drink or whatever, Red Bulls. There you go. They got those. I don't touch those stuff. Then there's Gatorade again, and then there's water again. So they bookend you with water, and then bookend you on the insides of that with Gatorade. So what I would do is I'd come in, I'd grab a little sip of water. I would grab a cup, but I'd just take a little sip. I'd get a cup of Gatorade, and I'd just take maybe 2 gulps of it. Not even, they give you about half a cup. I drink maybe a quarter of the cup. Take 2 little sips of Gatorade, and I take that whole section to drink those 2 sips of Gatorade, throw that away, and then I end with water. So I make sure I kind of have a clean taste in my mouth. I don't want the Gatorade taste in my mouth for another mile. I have a clean, I wash everything down with water. So if I grab an orange slice, get the orange slice in, wash it down with water. And I did that I took something at almost every aid station. I took the chicken broth that came out. I grabbed a cup of that. It was all right, but everybody told you got to do it. It was fine. It wasn't anything special. But here's the thing about the second loop for me. I felt so good that I ended up running. The whole next 13 miles. Well, except for Barton, except the uphills on Barton. But I ran this whole uphill. I ran this whole thing here. I ran the uphill on the bridge and back down. This is where I started hiking. I hiked halfway up Barton, got to the top of Barton, and started slowly coming down, get some good momentum, did this loop, hiked back up Barton. Then I got some good momentum coming down Barton, and I ran it the rest of the way in. It's about 1.5 miles the rest of the way in. And I was an Ironman, and it was super exciting. Never done it before. I still even have my bracelet on. It's almost been a month. What's today's date? It's almost been a month since the race, and I still have the bracelet on that they gave me because it was so it's such an achievement. Something I've been training for kind of on and off for like 2 years, 2.5 years almost. So it's. I would have to say, looking back on it now, it was one of the easier things. It was a lot easier than I thought it was going to be. Because like I said in the beginning of the video, I way overtrained. To just finish, I way overtrained. I would say the biggest thing that helped me feel that way is coming off the bike my glute strength, because I hike so much, I'm doing a lot of climbs when I hike. My glute strength was there. I felt strong. And I would say if there's one thing, if you don't have a coach or you don't have a training plan or anything like that, I would say one thing that helped me the most is get on the Stairmaster, do some hikes, really build some glute strength. And obviously, quads, calves, all that stuff, you're gonna naturally get that stuff the more you bike. But you can't really build glute strength unless you're doing a lot of hill repeats, whether you're running or biking. And if you're not doing a ton of hill repeats, then you really need to get on a Stairmaster, or you really need to do some hiking with some elevation. And I feel like that's what helped me the most. And my nutrition I felt like perfect. The weather was, even though the first half of the bike, it was in a storm. It was basically like the rain was coming down pretty good for about the first half of the bike, but it kept the temperatures really low, kept the temperatures down. So I felt like either I got lucky or I did really well. Obviously, got lucky with the weather, did really well with the nutrition, and I kind of overtrained to be able to do what I did. Here are my run splits, or my run time. My run time was 4:57, so just under 5 hours. I finished 484 out of 1,064 men, 624 out of 1,600. So percentage wise, my run was way better than everything else, because I was passing a lot of people on the run. I think it's just because they were tired. A lot of people were walking. Most people I passed were walking. And posted an overall time of 13:03, where I finished 80th out of about 160 something in my age group, which is 40 to 44, and finished with a 13:03. So I felt good overall. My gender rank was 484, overall rank 624 out of about 1,600 people. So felt pretty good about that. 2022 Ironman Chattanooga. If you guys have any questions, I'm glad to answer. I'm no pro. I'm just here sharing my experience. Sharing my experience with some people who have either never done this race before, never done an Ironman before, and just interested in learning getting as much data as they can, getting as much information as you can. So I'm going to go back and do it again. I'm going to go back and do it again in 2023. So look for me out there if you're going to be there.
Our next winner is from Trussville, Alabama.